Hello guys and welcome back to the Crystal Palace TV YouTube channel. I'm Fonsa Greenbrewer and today I'm doing a live stream where I'm going to be discussing the brand new signing, our first of the summer transfer window, and that is Vicente Guaita joining on a free transfer, will officially become a Palace player on the 1st of July and of course is a goalkeeper. Now this is a transfer which for basically the majority of the January window we were linked with him and we were close to getting him on numerous occasions, but right at the last minute on deadline day we weren't able to get him. So of course, instead of signing him for January, we ended up getting him on the pre-contract, and of course the club have kept quite secretive about this, but obviously today, midway through the day, they've announced the signing. But also Steve Parish, in mid-February did put it in the programme. But it's nice now that we've got official confirmation of Guaita joining Palace, obviously on a 3-year deal. But also it is quite important that they've announced it, because there was quite a lot of fans worrying, including myself, regarding the fact that his agent was going on radio stations in Spain and saying that he's going to go to all these different clubs. So realistically, it's great to see that they finally announced it. Now of course he could still leave and Palace just cash in, but the fact that Palace have posted quite a lot on social media in terms of his best goals, career stats, things like that, suggests that they're not looking to sell him and they're looking to utilise him because he's a free transfer, he's a good player, good pedigree. So realistically he's a great signing for us and hopefully he will be good for us in the Premier League. Now of course, as with any goalkeeper coming to a new league, maybe he may not be able to match up to the physicality of the Premier League, but judging what Sky Sports reporter Guillaume Balaguer, I believe his name is said, he said in January that he thinks that Guaita is one of these players who probably could suit the Premier League. May not be the best, but actually he thinks that his style of play and his attributes could suit the Premier League. So the fact that we've got a Spanish football expert saying a few months ago that actually a player who was banging form, if he came to the Premier League he'd fit in alright, that's of course great to see as well. So once again, do comment below like I always do on these live streams. Do comment below with your views of Vicente Guaita's deal, but also ask or tell me what your thoughts are, and also feel free to ask me any questions about the deal itself. So what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to go through the club's statement, obviously what they put on the website. They do this with every single transfer, but it says that Crystal Palace FC can confirm that goalkeeper Vicente Guaita will join the club on a 3-year deal. The 31-year-old shot stopper will officially become a Palace player on the 1st of July when his contract at Getafe expires, and it's Roy Hodgson's first signing of the summer. The Eagles fought off competition from a host of top European clubs to catch Guaita, who began his career at Valencia where he made more than 100 appearances before moving to Getafe back in 2014. Last season he kept 12 clean sheets to help his side to an 8th place finish in their third season back in the Liga. Crystal Palace chairman Steve Parish said, "We are delighted to sign one of the Liga's best goalkeepers and are pleased that we beat off all the competition for his signature. We are very much looking forward to Vicente joining pre-season training and helping us push on in the Premier League." So as you can see here, your bog standard statement from the club, but just a few things to pick out from that in terms of him as a player. So obviously I've already mentioned, loads of clubs were apparently linked with him, and obviously his agent went on the radio. So of course the fact that we've got one of the best, or he's the 4th best goalkeeper last season in La Liga. So we've got one of the best goalkeepers in probably arguably one of the top leagues in the world. So we've got one of the, we've got a real quality player here, real goalkeeper of good pedigree. So the fact that we've been able to beat off loads of different clubs from around Europe, and considering Barcelona were also linked with him recently, the fact that we've been able to beat them off, get his signature, and of course bring him to the club is also a great capture. But in terms of himself, 100 appearances for Valencia, back when he was playing for them, he was playing pretty decent for them. And if you look at my channel now, there is a highlights video of all of the saves he made, and quite a lot of them are from his time at Valencia. And as you can see from that video, they are pretty good saves as well. Now in terms of last season, obviously he moved to Getafe back in 2014, so he's been there a few seasons now. But last season kept 12 clean sheets, which is one of the reasons why he's up there as being one of the top goalkeepers in the Liga. But also just his overall ability, saving ability, agility, all things like that which you would expect from a goalkeeper. He had all of that last season combined with the clean sheets, and obviously that helped his own performance because obviously he helped him play so well, but also it helped Getafe, who literally only just got promoted. He helped them get straight up to 8th place, so at their first time of asking. So not only on the personal level is it a great achievement in terms of playing so well, but also he's actually managed to carry and help his team go forward. So of course that's great to see as well. Now, of course, much like the Premier League, La Liga is a very difficult league. You know, some people may say it isn't, but when you consider a team like Getafe can come up from the league below and still finish 8th, shows there's a bit of competition there, and it just shows actually the quality he's got. And, you know, when you consider he kept a clean sheet against Barcelona and saved the free kick from Lionel Messi, you know, we're looking at a player here with real top pedigree when you consider he can do that against Barcelona. But realistically for me, I think it's a really great signing. Obviously, it would have been nice to get him in January because obviously at that time, you know, our goalkeepers weren't doing well. But actually give credit to Wayne Hennessy because as soon as Dean Kiley came in, he improved. So hopefully, Vicente Guaita coming in, presumably he'll be the first choice goalkeeper. And even if he is, hopefully Hennessy can play in the cup games and start to, you know, get even better because both these players are both in their primes of their career. So hopefully, you know, having a bit more competition for that first team spot will hopefully improve both of them as a whole. But do comment below with your views of this signing and, you know, any other transfers or any other, you know, players we should be looking at. Also do comment them below, you know, your transfer ideas. So the club also earlier today did obviously put on a article about his career to date. So just a few sort of statistics and things about Vicente Guaita's career. So it's be interesting. I've obviously read through it already, but just to go through it again because in terms of the context about him and, you know, finding out more about him, this certainly is an interesting read. So in signing Vicente Guaita, Palace has managed to secure the services of one of Spanish football's top goalkeepers of recent years, who boasts plenty of pedigree, having played at the highest level for the majority of his career. His potential was quickly realised by Spanish giants Valencia by the age of 8, when he was invited to join their youth academy in 1995. After working his way through the ranks and playing an understudy to top shot stoppers such as Carolinas and Hilband, he made his first team bow in the 2008-2009 season and further displayed his talents the following campaign on loan at Huelva, where he won Sangura's Goalkeeper of the Year award. So as you can see here, from the age of 8, they could see clearly that he has got talent in that goalkeeping role, and of course by doing that Valencia brought him up, took him to their academy, and of course they were one of the main people who developed him. But obviously he also went on loan to, I'm not sure how you say this, but I think it's Recreato Helva. You know, do correct me if I'm wrong in saying that, but he went there on loan, and obviously that's going to help in any player's development. So of course in that instance, you know, he's not going to be first choice at Valencia, go out on loan, come back, and obviously he staked his claim and of course became Valencia's #1. And of course when he went on loan, he also won the Goalkeeper of the Year award. So just showing that even at a young age, he didn't only just have good ability, but also he was winning awards, you know, for showing that ability and obviously helping the team he was at. That form also saw him awarded more opportunities upon his return to Valencia, and he appeared in 28 games in all competitions, including a run to the knockout stages of the UEFA Champions League. He eventually established himself as a first choice for Valencia after helping them to succeed third place finishes in the Liga, where he was made the vice captain for the 2013-14 season. So once again here, a few points to pick up here. Obviously when he came back to Valencia after that loan spell, he made 28 appearances after that, so just showing that actually that loan that he went out actually helped him to develop so much as a player that he was able to become the first choice. And of course he was involved in all the different competitions, you know, obviously in the league, but also Champions League. So not only have we got a player here who's got experience in the Liga, but also someone who's got experience in the Champions League. So when you say players might not be ready for the physicality of the Premier League, you've got to consider that actually the Champions League has got all different leagues put together, or all different teams from different leagues put together. So realistically he's going to already have experience of playing teams from different leagues. So realistically that's going to help Palace in terms of him adapting to the Premier League and the physicality. And of course eventually, you know, after having these chances, established himself as that first choice at Valencia, and of course one of the main reasons he did that is because he was one of the main key players in terms of helping them to get successive third place finishes in the Liga. When, and if you look at the Liga, when you consider, you've got likes of Atletico, Barcelona, Real Madrid, you've got them three clubs almost always are the top three. So the fact that, with the help of Guaita, Valencia were able to get to that level, that's of course great to see. And of course, something that's really important with a goalkeeper is leadership. He was also the vice captain for Valencia, which of course shows great leadership skills as well. At the end of that season, he had amassed 114 appearances for Valencia. He then made a move to Getafe, where he was instantly installed as their number one, but couldn't help them sliding out of the top flight football during his second season at the Madrid-based club. So although obviously he moved from Valencia to Getafe, was their first choice goalkeeper, ultimately, because even though he's done well this season and in previous seasons, he couldn't stop them getting relegated. But of course they came straight back up, or they came up again, like I've already mentioned, and obviously he helped them to propel them to 8th this season. So although, it's not ideal he got relegated, but sometimes going down a level gives you that chance to get more experience and then come back better. And of course, in the case of him, veteran goalkeeper certainly has done him the world of good. However, with their main shot stopper back between the posts, Guaita helped them bounce back via the playoffs in 2017, and then established themselves back amongst Spanish football's elite last term by keeping 12 clean sheets to help Getafe to an 8th place finish. So once again, they're just highlighting how important Guaita was in terms of the 12 clean sheets, but also just his sort of saving ability as well. And he was one of the main reasons. Obviously, Getafe have got, numerous good players, but actually you've got to put Guaita up there as one of the better ones, purely because of the influence he had in terms of helping them to finish 8th that season. But of course, if you do want to check any of these articles out, then do head over to cpc.co.uk. You can find all of the videos on there, obviously on Palace's site. And also, if you head over to their Twitter page at CPFC, you can also find a video where it just gives you basically a summary of his career and a few more details about his Palace deal. But overall, like I've said already, I think it's a good deal for Palace. 3 years for a goalkeeper in his prime. Got great experience in not only in the Liga but also obviously in the Champions League and Europa League as well. And of course, he is a leader, which of course is what we need in the side. But do comment below if you're watching your views of Vicente Guaita's signing, and obviously what your overall feelings are about the transfer window. Whether you think we're going to leave it late and do stuff after the World Cup, or whether you do think we might be early for once and sneak in a few deals in the next week so that we can get stuff done before the World Cup. And also, if you're watching the stream, do feel free to share it so we can get as many people on here as possible, but also so that you guys can put comments in that comment section so we can have a little bit of a discussion, not only about Guaita, obviously that's the main purpose of the live stream, but just to talk about Palace transfers in general, because I personally do like to have discussions with you lot. So what I thought I'd do now, obviously I've talked a little bit about Vicente Guaita, obviously Palace's first signing, but I just thought I'd move over to the transfer centre as I'd done in the January transfer window, and just go through a few of Palace's transfer targets, who we've been linked with so far, and of course a few of the ins and outs already. Now of course the window's been open for a month or so now, but of course Palace haven't really been active that much. But of course today we've got our first proper player coming in, even though we've known for weeks that he's possibly coming in on the pre-contract, but we've got our first official signing of the summer, but also our first official departure as well. And of course earlier today the released list was also released, which obviously said that Damien Delaney had left, Lee Chun-Yong and Diego Calavieri. So of course them three players, obviously Calavieri was only ever a backup in case Hennessy or Speroni got injured. Obviously Lee Chun-Yong, been at the club for 3 years, hasn't really made an impact other than a few good performances here and there, so realistically there's no reason to upgrade or extend his contract, because he's not really going to have any impact to the team. And of course Damien Delaney, great servant to the club. Really, you could see last season, and especially the season just gone, his legs were starting to go, and obviously he's decided to walk away. Fair enough, and he obviously, I'll go on to talk about who he signed up for, but of course he's moved back over to Ireland to play for his hometown club. But just to go through a few of our targets, I suppose, but before I do that, just talk about the ins and outs. So Vicente Guaita from Getafe on a free transfer, as I've already mentioned. Damien Delaney has gone to Cork City in Ireland, his hometown club. That was obviously a free transfer as well. But once again, no money spent yet from Palace, but ultimately we've got to spend some money because we've got to get quite a large number of players in. But at the moment it stands at one player in, one player out. Though in terms of sort of the top sort of latest news articles I've brought out, and obviously the top one there you can see is that Bakary Sakho, Yohan Cabaye and Joe Ward are close to signing new contracts, and the club announced today that obviously them three players, as I've already mentioned in terms of Delaney, Lee Chi-Yong and Cavalieri, they've obviously been released, but these players, so Bakary Sakho, Cabaye, Joe Ward, Speroni as well, I think, these players obviously their contracts are up, so they are going to be released, but the club are looking to give them new contracts, have offered them new contracts, and it's now just a matter of them accepting it. So although they're on the release list, they're actually on another list which says that actually they've been offered the contract, so it's sort of 50-50 as to whether they will sign it or leave as well. And of course all these details about transfers and the list, if you want to see it yourself, you can find it on Palace's website. Now the other one I picked out was also from The Guardian. It says that Crystal Palace is set to offer Wilfried Zaha a new contract to ward off interest from Spurs. This is something that comes up every year in terms of Spurs, Chelsea, Liverpool being linked with Wilfried Zaha. But now Palace, allegedly, according to The Guardian, are going to offer Wilfried Zaha a new contract which will make him the number one top earner at the club, more than Benteke, Mamadou Sakho. So of course for him personally that would be great because it gives him more money, but also for Palace it would be great because it obviously contracts don't guarantee anything, but what it does guarantee is that he won't sign a new contract and then leave a few weeks later. So realistically, in terms of that, if he does sign a new deal, then even though he's already got a 5-year deal, he signs that, say, for another 5 seasons, it just keeps the likeliness of him staying at Palace as it is, or even higher. But also, in terms of clubs he could go to, if we give Wilfried Zaha another pay rise, he'd be on the same amount of money as he would be if he went to Liverpool, or if he went to Spurs, or if he went to Chelsea. So that for him personally, obviously he's enjoying his football at Palace, which is one of the main reasons he wants to stay. But also, what's the point in him going to another club where he can play regularly at Palace and still get paid as much as he would have done, or he would do, if he went to any of sort of the top 6 clubs. And of course the last one I picked out, this is not really big news now, but because Vicente Guaita has been announced now, it's looking like that's definitely not going to happen now. But we were linked with Alban Lafont, obviously a young goalkeeper from France, really talented, being scouted by Palace and Arsenal as well. And obviously it did look like at one point that if Guaita didn't join, then we'll go in for Lafont. But now because we've signed Guaita and we're likely to give Speroni a new contract, there'll be no need to do that. But it just shows that Palace are lining up options if they weren't able to get their first choice. So once again, it's good to see that Palace are actually looking ahead and thinking that if one thing doesn't work, they've obviously got a replacement lined up. But in terms of some of the main other news, just to go through a few articles that we've seen over the last sort of week or so. So Benteke's agent has said that Besiktas, obviously the Turkish club, are interested in Benteke and they really want to get his services, but it's looking like that they won't be able to pay Palace's valuation, which is about 20 million euros. So of course we sign him for about 30 to 32 million. We want to get back at least most of that. So of course we're not going to let him go for, in my opinion, less than say 25 million. But Besiktas have, they're looking to get him, but at the moment it's looking like they can't afford his demands. And they've also looked at a possible loan deal, but that's not really looking like it's going to happen anyway. And I personally think there's no reason for us to sell Benteke. I think he's had a slight off-season, and with sort of a rest and getting ready for pre-season, I think he can come back even better next season. Obviously, we're interested in signing 12 million rated Marseille defender Hiro Saki. Now, I don't really know too much about him, but from what I've heard, he's a very versatile defender, can play at left back, centre back, right back. And really for me, I think the only reason we've been linked with him is that if Joe Ward does leave, he's a good replacement because obviously he's got Champions League pedigree, really hard worker. I've looked at his stats on who scored. He's got good attributes for the Premier League. So in terms of that deal, if Joe Ward does eventually leave, or if he doesn't accept that new contract, then of course I can understand why Palace have lined up this Marseille defender, because he's someone that could come in And obviously Wan-Bissaka is going to be first choice, but someone who can come in, give him a bit of competition, and as he's slightly older, I think 28 years old, he can obviously coach Wan-Bissaka as well. Now this is a story that comes up, the next one, every transfer window, the last 3 in a row, but it's that Leicester City are reportedly expressing interest in signing winger Andros Townsend this summer. That is from the Daily Mail. Personally, for me, I do think it's a nothing rumour. They're linked with him every summer, and every January so far that he's been at Palace. I don't really see this happening, Andros Townsend has openly spoke about the fact that he's happy at Palace, so there's no reason for him to leave. But also, I do think that actually he's a key player for us, and if we can get the likes of Benteke back to how he was, 2 seasons ago, obviously where he scored 17 goals, if we can get him back to his old form with both Zaha and Townsend on the 2 wings, that could be, once again, a very potent attack going forward. So personally for me, don't really see much in that. This is one that keeps coming up, and this is certainly one that if we are going to make a signing, I do personally think we need to make it. And this is that Palace have reportedly been linked with West Ham's Mikel Antonio. Now Roy Hodgson, much like myself, likes his versatility, but obviously fears that West Ham may price Palace out of the deal because they're going to ask for too much money. But if we're looking at him, maybe a bid of sort of 15 to 20 million, I think that would be a suitable bid for him, because not only is Antonio a very strong, physical, fast player, but also he's got very good defensive attributes. So once again, if Joe Ward does leave, he could fit in at right back. Ultimately, he's not going to be primarily a right back, but he could fit in there as competition. But also he can play on either wing, he can play up front. So once again, if Benteke next season or someone like Sorloth, they're a bit out of form, bring in someone like Antonio. He can obviously play in numerous positions, and of course, add to our sort of physical, pacey attack going forward. And once again, that was from The Guardian. Now, of course, we've also, in the same article as The Guardian, they said we've expressed an interest in Stoke City's Joe Allen and Leonard Ndonka from Anderlecht. Personally, for me, I'm not really sure about Joe Allen, because 2 seasons ago he was absolutely immense for Stoke. Last season he wasn't as good as he was the season before, and he sort of looked a bit lacklustre. And of course, with Stoke getting relegated and the fact they're offering a new contract, I don't really see that happening. Whereas Ndonka, on the other hand, this is a player that I would be, really, really keen to see Palace sign. Not only because of his age, I think he's like 22, 23, or maybe even younger than that. Not only because of his age, but also his versatility. So for Anderlecht, he's played at centre-back, he can play centre defensive mid. So once again, much like someone like Jara Riedewald, he's got that sort of adaptability and flexibility to play numerous positions, and that's something I would like to see, because we've got someone like Damien Delaney who's just left the club. So rather than just bringing in one defender, bring in a sort of a utility player who can replace Delaney's place in the squad in terms of a backup centre-back, but also can give us another option in midfield as well. Now, of course, this was another one, once again in the same article from The Guardian, say that we've expressed an interest in right-back Almay Traore. He's 22, from Monaco. Once again, like with the Marseille defender, and like I've said, if Joe Ward does leave, this is certainly someone we could possibly look at, only because he's young, he's in a position that we need, because we would only, if we don't sign anyone, we would only have one right-back. And personally for me, I've looked at his stats. They may not be the greatest, but in a Monaco side who's done very well in recent years, I do think that would be a good signing for us. I don't know too much about his performances. I haven't seen too much of him play. But from what I've read and from what I've obviously gathered from the stats, especially on WhoScored.com, he would be a good addition to the club. But think about it really for me is, we want to bring young players through. So Wan-Bissaka, we want to give Wan-Bissaka his chance. But we can't give him his chance if we're just going to bring in another youth player from another club. So that's another reason why I think maybe the Marseille defender might be better, because he's he's slightly older player, so has a little bit more experience, rather than having another young player who might sort of stop someone like Wan-Bissaka from developing even further. Now, this was another one. The club announced today, obviously, as I said already, their release list. So all of the players who are going to be released and are maintaining their contract. Of course, on there, Speroni was on that release list, but also he was on the main list, and it said in brackets, contracts being offered. So obviously Palace came out and said that as well. So Julian Speroni, club legend, he's been offered new terms with the club. Even if he isn't going to play next season, it would just be nice to have him around the training ground, have him, sort of coaching the youngsters, and also just having that sort of experience and knowledge and sort of the wisdom as well, I suppose, over the squad, and having that influence on the training ground. That would be great to see as well. Now, just moving on to some other transfer news as well. There's quite a lot recently. Jack Livermore is a target for Roy Hodgson at Crystal Palace. That was what the Sun wrote. And the Birmingham Mail went on to say that actually, if we are going to sign Livermore, it's going to cost us more than 15 million. So for me personally, if it was a deal between 10 to 15 million, possibly, I think that's something we could do, because he's a once again, very versatile midfielder, and that's shown sort of in West Brom's little revival at the end of the season. He is a key player for them and good in the midfield. And also, you've got to consider that also he's got England caps. So he's not just a player who's got relegated, but he's still got England caps and he's got that experience as well. But personally for me, this is a deal that I would only go for if we can't get some of our other targets, but also only if it's between 10 to 15 million, because realistically, I don't want us paying £15 million for someone who's possibly going to only be a bench player. Now, obviously, this was one which was all over Twitter. I don't know how much to believe it, but it's that Jack Wilshere is close to joining Palace, and the information was heard during conversations regarding the organisation of Palace's July training camp in Sweden. So this guy on Twitter came out and said that he'd overheard, or his friend had told him that he'd overheard, that Palace on their pre-season tour, they told the camp where they're training for pre-season, they said to them to get a room for Jack Wilshere, because Jack Wilshere is going to be part of the squad. Now, obviously, we don't know whether to believe this or not, but even if it is true, because there's got to be some truth in it, he's looking like he's going to be a free contract, been linked with Palace before. So realistically, it could be a good transfer. It could be a realistic transfer, and I personally think if he does eventually sign on a free contract, even though he's asking for quite a lot in terms of wages, I do think that would be ultimately a good signing for Palace. You know, we saw a lot this season with Arsenal that when he isn't injured, he can be a real attacking threat for them. And although he doesn't have many goals and many assists, his overall sort of attacking influence in terms of long passes, crosses, and just sort of creating stuff in open play, that's of course great to see as well. Now, obviously, there's the Polish fan account on Twitter. They were the ones who found this tweet and obviously put it out there. So we don't know whether to believe it or not. But if it is true, then of course the person heard it, because the person who's organising Palace's training camp in Sweden has said that they want a room for Jack Wilshere, as he's going to be part of the squad. So believe of what you will. Now, apparently Palace are interested in Leeds star Tom Pearce. Don't really know too much about him, so I can't really comment much here. But I believe he is I'm not sure which position he plays, but because he's relatively young, they could always change positions there. But apparently, we were linked with him, and as soon as that news came out, he signed a new contract. And basically, the only reason he'd done that is not to stop us signing him. If we are sort of definitely concretely interested in him, I think it's just more the fact that if you give him a higher contract, it makes it harder for other clubs to sign him. And if we do go and eventually sign him, obviously we'll have to pay more money because he's got a bigger contract. But Yorkshire Evening Post, that's where it came from. Don't know if there's too much in it, but certainly if we're looking at young players, I think he's English as well. If we're looking at young English players, that's of course going to be a positive. Once again, going back to that Wilfried Zaha thing from the Evening Standard, apparently we're going to give Wilfried Zaha a new contract because we want to ward off the interest from the likes of Tottenham, Liverpool, Chelsea, but also we're going to, yes, we're going to probably, raise his wages, but also because of that, Tottenham have seemed to ended all of their interest now because we valuated him at £70 million. Now, personally for me, I've said in the past 50 to 60, maybe even 70 at push is probably Zaha's value, and that's not just sort of his technical value in terms of what he is as a player, but it's mainly what he is to the squad. So without him, we probably would have been relegated. So it's not just the fact of how much he is valued as an overall player, but actually it's how much he's valued by the club. The fact that we love him, the fact that he's such an influential player, that's why he's worth so much. You could say in today's market that actually 70 million isn't that unrealistic. And personally for me, I do think that if we are going to sell him, which I don't think is likely this season in particular, maybe a few seasons time, but if we are realistically looking to sell him, then it's going to be something in the region of about £70 million. Not obviously because of his pure talent and ability, but mainly because of how important he is to Palace. Now, the final story from the Newcastle Chronicle is about Palace having an interest in Newcastle striker Alexander Mitrovic. Now, this was a player that Palace were linked with before he moved to Fulham. I think it was the January transfer window, and obviously he went there on loan, scored loads of goals from them, helped them get promoted, which is of course great to see. And it's looking likely that he's probably going to go back to Fulham on a permanent deal. But even so, Palace have been asked to sort of be kept in the loop. So any news sort of regarding his future, Palace want to know, because obviously that's a player that Palace have looked at before and obviously are looking at again, because obviously he's a talented player. And certainly for me, I think he would offer us a slightly different option, because he's not necessarily all about being a target man. Yes, he still is a target man, but I think he's less so than someone like Benteke. So he would give us a slightly different option, but also someone like Sorloth, for example. I think that actually Sorloth, the pace of Sorloth with Mitrovic's physicality, I think that possibly could be a good partnership going forward next season. And that's obviously dependent on whether we do get him. But there hasn't really been any concrete news in terms of Palace definitely being 100% interested in him. But obviously there's been quite a lot of rumours about Palace wanting to know what's going on, so that they know whether to make a potential deal or not. And actually, Roy Hodgson and Dougie Freeman, they were actually at a Fulham game. I think it was the semi-finals of the playoffs. They were actually there scouting players. We can only presume it's Mitrovic or someone like Kearney, or I don't know, or maybe Fredericks, who's now gone to West Ham. But maybe they weren't looking at these players. But what we can sort of confer from it, that actually Roy Hodgson, Dougie Freeman, two people who are highly influential in recruitment other than the owners. So these guys are going to be obviously quite clearly scouting players, and hopefully Mitrovic was one of them, because Roy Hodgson came out after the game and said that he was very impressed with him, and reminded him of Alan Shearer. So the fact that Roy Hodgson speaks very highly of him, hopefully that suggests that Palace could possibly make a move, because obviously Roy Hodgson likes sort of his playing style as a player. But they're all of the sort of latest transfers. If you do go online, just type in the hashtag CPFC, you can find literally hundreds of articles about Palace, but I've just sort of picked out a few there just to give you an idea of the overall sort of span of players that we're currently linked with. But just to go back to the main page, like I've said already, players in, obviously as announced today, Vicente Guaita on the free transfer. Players going out, Damien Delaney to Cork City on a free transfer. Good luck to him. He's been a great servant to the club, and in my opinion, one of our most recent legends, because obviously his influence he's had. And of course, the sort of three main latest news is that Palace trio, Bakary Sakho, Cabaye and Joe Ward are set to, or are close to, signing new contracts at Palace. They've certainly been offered them. And add to that list someone like Julian Speroni. He also is amongst that list of players who are set to sign, or I say set to sign new deals. It's looking likely that they will do it, but obviously they've been offered it, which is the main thing. And of course, Wilfried Zaha, Palace are going to up his wages to ward off interest from people like Spurs, as well as giving him a valuation of 70 million, which is likely to put off any teams that are interested in him. And of course, the last one, which I personally think, now that we've announced the goalkeeper signing, it's not going to happen. But Alban Lafont, young French goalkeeper, Palace were linked with him and have been scouting him intensely this season, but have decided that at the moment not to go forth with the deal because of obviously Vicente Guaita. But do comment below with your thoughts if you are watching a live stream, or if you're watching it back as a video. Do comment below with your overall views of the transfer window. How much you predict Palace will spend, what sort of players you think we will be looking at, and of course the main theme of the video, Vicente Guaita. Do also comment below with your views of him there. But like I've said, transfer window now, as you can see on the screen there, 61 days, 20 hours. So we've got quite a lot of time. In terms of, if you look at days, you're thinking that's quite a long time. But with the World Cup, with pre-season, that time's going to fly past really quickly. So hopefully Palace, now that we've got one deal in the bag, hopefully that sort of, get it rolling, and we announce some deals, in the next few weeks or so. So if you're watching the stream, like I've said, do comment below, because I do want to hear your opinion, but also do share the video around so we can get as many people as possible onto the live stream. So as I previously mentioned, in terms of the transfer window and having the World Cup in between, over the summer, obviously over sort of the month or so that the World Cup's on, obviously where I'm off school, I'm going to be doing lots of live streams of all of the games, as well as updating people on transfer windows. So if I just give you a glimpse here, this is the sort of thing I'm going to be doing. So for most of the group stage games, and of course the semi-finals and games after that, I'm going to be doing live streams. So if you are someone who wants to, doesn't want to watch sort of ITV's coverage or the BBC's coverage, then of course do head over to the eFootball YouTube channel, where of course I'm going to be doing loads of live streams over the World Cup, and especially the England games. So obviously I can't be sure about all of the games in the World Cup, but certainly any games involving England, and of course games from sort of the quarter-final or semi-finals, quarter-final, and any ones after the group stages, I'm almost guaranteed to do them. So if you are someone who wants an alternative way to keep up with the news in the World Cup, and of course you can also share your opinion on this live stream, then of course do tune in when I am doing these live streams, because as well as watching the game, I'll be very happy to answer your questions as well. So if you are someone who's loves football, got a passion for it, wants to get involved, as well as supporting the channel, then of course do head over there. And of course you can follow us at eFootball on Twitter, so you can obviously get notifications when we are going live. But just to head back to the transfer centre, as I've said there, that's how long we've got left of the transfer window. And like I've said, we potentially, for me, if all the players who Palace have offered new contracts, if they do sign it, it's obviously going to make the summer a bit more easier, because we're going to be losing less players. But let's say 1 or 2 of them leave, ultimately we're going to be having to look at maybe 5, maybe even 6 possibly at a push. We're going to look at that many additions. Now when you consider last summer we only made 4, in January we only made 3, the summer before that ultimately we did make quite a lot of signings, but ultimately in the last sort of transfer windows we haven't made that many signings. So for me, in order for us to stop being in a relegation battle next season and to really push on and do well next season, we really need to be looking at some more transfers. So for me, maybe 4 is the minimum. So I'm not including Vicente Guaita, so I'm thinking 4 extra transfers, which would take us up to 5. So realistically, 5 to 6 extra transfers, which ultimately is probably going to cost around 40 to maybe 60 million pounds. So we're looking at that sort of price range. So hopefully we can get transfers like that done, because ultimately we've got a good starting squad, we've got a core squad there which is really, really good. But as we saw last season, when we have so many injuries, the squad depth isn't necessarily as good as it can be. So of course we need to try and rebuild that. And for example, someone like Jake Livermore, yes, he may not be the best midfielder, but at least he's better than what we've got on the bench in a minute. Because realistically, if we had him this season, I think I'd rather much have him on than Lee Chung-yong, only because I think that Livermore, being an international player, having experience in the Premier League before, and actually even though he's played for West Brom and they got relegated, he's not a bad player. So I think that he would be a good player for us. So ultimately we're going to be looking at players to improve our main squad. Ultimately it doesn't really need that much improving, but someone to maybe come in and just give us a little bit more boost there. And of course the main reason we need players in the summer is just to give us a bit more boost in terms of backup and squad players. So overall, realistically, we've announced 1 player here today. We'll probably, for me personally, I would like another 5 more. And of course, over the next 61 days or so, we're going to be waiting patiently to see whether Palace do eventually announce any signings. But of course, that brings me now to the end of the live stream. I hope you guys watching did enjoy it, and if you are watching it back, I hope you did enjoy sort of my opinions and just discussing the signing of Vicente Guaita, as well as obviously talking about transfers in general. But if you do want to find any more news about him, then of course, like I've said already, head over to the Palace site, cpfc.co.uk, and of course head over to their Twitter as well, where you can of course watch the video that Palace made about Guaita. And of course, if you want an idea of some of his best saves he's made in his career, then obviously do head over, after you've watched this video, head over to the Crystal Palace YouTube page, which you're already on, and of course you can watch sort of a compilation I've put together and I've found of all of his best saves. So thank you guys for watching. I hope you did enjoy this live stream, but all that's left for me to say is remember to up the Palace.